Welcome to Actions and Limits. My name is Justin Atherton. I'm the Peak Performance Consultant for Confidence Unchained. With me as always is Paul Fortune. Paul is a mindset coach and the founder of A Call to Action. And together, we make Actions and Limits. Welcome to the show, the podcast where we talk about the actions we can take and the limits we create. Make sure to not miss an episode. We've got some great interviews coming up. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube or follow on Instagram and Facebook to stay updated on all our upcoming content and be able to message us. And also, follow on your favorite podcast platforms. We're on iTunes, we're on Spotify, all the big ones out there. So whichever one you're listening or watching on, make sure you click that button so you don't miss a single episode. This is season 2 of Actions and Limits podcast, and we've got some really great guests coming up. Paul, today, personal friend of mine, Jeremy Quant, is coming on the show. I've known Jeremy for a couple years, and I'm really excited to bring him on. I know you've been checking out his website and some of his content. So I think we're going to learn a lot about the art world today.
Yeah, absolutely. And the abstract art is really what I want to dive into with him, because it's very, very hard for me to get into it, and I need to keep an open mind with it. So I'm going to dive into those questions with him so that he can open my mind so I can appreciate that type of art more.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and bring him out. I'm excited to have him on the show. So Jeremy Quant is a visual art and tech entrepreneur. He began his career as a story artist in animation and transitioned into a commercial art and design business, which he still operates today. His new venture is a virtual art tech company, dotred. It's a platform for artists, galleries, and museums that allow an artful conversation to be created through audio, or simply put, a community podcast for art. Some of his clients include UNESCO, Airbnb, LYFT, Magic Johnson, and Los Angeles County Museum of Art. He's a student of development and achievement, always interested in excelling personally and professionally, regularly involved in leadership training, fitness, and book listening. And something you wouldn't know by the first glance is he loves to dance, especially in pitch blackness, his version of escaping reality and feeling the rhythm and movement in his mind. So everybody welcome Jeremy Quant to the show. So everybody, let's welcome Jeremy to the show. Jeremy, so glad to have you on the Actions and Limits podcast, man. I've been wanting to have you as a guest for a while. Appreciate you joining us, bud.
Yeah, man. No, thank you. Thank you. I've been hearing a lot about your podcasts and people that you brought in, so I'm excited to be on and connect.
So I like your bio. I know you're in the art world and you're dealing with a lot of different projects as far as that goes. But you share with our audience, like, how did you get into that? How did you step into this world where you're at right now?
Man, well, I have been in that world, I'm going to just say, since the womb. I have a family of artists and writers mainly. And so, the craft really developed through family, giving me pens and pencils and paints and just said, go crazy and do something. And so it evolved to, digital art and then into fine art, and then now into basically just a platform for others to join in connecting about art. So my whole world really has really evolved around creativity and art.
Jeremy, I was looking at dotred, and I was very fascinated by it. And I feel like it's really COVID friendly for so many reasons. And I was looking at some of that art. Explain to me how you got that started, because I think that is just a tremendous thing that you started.
Well, thank you. Yeah. So, pre-COVID, and even a few years back, so dotred has definitely evolved, just like myself. So dotred came out of me working with this organization called the Downtown LA Art Walk, which was or still is an event that's held every second Thursday of the month that caters to thousands of people to go downtown and check out art galleries. And so I worked with them to bring in activities for people to connect with the galleries. And one big thing was, how do we get people to buy art? How do we get people to connect to art? And so there was like this relationship problem that people had with art. They loved it, but they didn't know really connect with it enough to buy it. And I think the biggest disconnect is the relationship that people have with art. And what does it mean? And is this too good for me because it's on a big wall? And I don't understand it because it's just a dot on a painting, or like it's just people. So it came out of how do we create a better relationship? And so we started out as a YouTube channel, and then tourism business, and then fast forward now as a digital platform for people to connect. But the same catalyst of what does it actually mean for people to have a relationship with art, a good relationship, has just evolved in new ways of creating that relationship.
I like it, Jeremy. And you and I have had this conversation before, and you've said it multiple times already, talking about that relationship with art. And share some of that with us, your ideas on that, because I know that you and I have talked about that, building that relationship between the artist and the art and the consumer. So talk about what you mean by that relationship.
Art really at its core is all about its own reflection on you. And so, when people see art, many times what they're doing is they're really kind of reflecting on their own perspective, their own experiences. Art just gives some clue of where you're at. And so art has always given that ability to be a reflection point. And, it's really people taking the extra step to view, to challenge ideas, to challenge color, to challenge narrative, and see what they're actually saying in that. And so, I've always been a proponent, an advocate for people to give their raw opinion. Whether you like it, whether you hate it, that's fine. If you hate it, I'm actually glad that you hate some piece of art. I actually want to know why. Okay. Because the why actually gets deeper to what you're actually saying. Well, I don't understand it. Well, that doesn't really give me much. But what is it that you don't understand? What are you not seeing, or what are you not liking?
And do you have to understand it? If it's art, right? Is there always something there to understand, or is it just something to be appreciated?
So, well, I think they can definitely coalesce. Even if you there is an appreciation for work. And I think if you don't quite understand it, it actually can be a little harder to appreciate. I think if you can understand it, there's so much more benefits to appreciating the work. You know, sure, there's aesthetics, right? It's pretty. But even that, there's an understanding of what your perspective is of what beauty is, right? And so if it doesn't actually have that beauty factor, which a lot of people may see in art, if they don't see the beauty, then they're like, it's not beautiful. It's definitely not interesting to me. You know?
Well, let's dive into the abstract art for a minute, because I think that's kind of where the interpretation really comes into play. You know, I've talked to people, a lot of the people that have that mindset of more mathematician, scientific kind of mindset, and they look at a painting that's abstract and they go, what the heck is this? This is just paint on a canvas. I could have done that. Why is this art? So could you kind of dive into that a little bit? I think you have a little bit, but dive into that abstract art that people have to kind of interpret it, the art, that it's just not, you know, people are going to see different things because it's not just, you know, right there in your face. You kind of have to use your own imagination, so to speak, to understand what that art means to yourself. Like you said, art speaks to yourself. So can you talk to the people that have that kind of mindset, that feel that way about that abstract art?
Yeah. You know, abstract is, I mean, it's another sort of language within the world of art. You know, you have like figurative art, which is, it's people, it's representative. I can see a face, I can see a body shape, or I can see a tree. Abstract points, it definitely points more to an emotional string as opposed to something that like is representative of an experience. So let's take like colors, right? What I've come to find out, I have a love of red and purple together. It was just like, there's this the emotional tie that just brings joy and love when I see purple and red like clash together. And yeah, I mean, it could have stemmed from like an experience that I had as a kid with playing with colors, and just the way that red and purple vibrate together. It was just like, yes, put that on the wall. I will look at that all day and enjoy myself. And so, when you get into form and shape that's not quite representative, there's a different way of how you're going to like interpret it, and so the interpretation could be emotional. What is that tied to emotionally? And so that's how I've personally seen how people can enjoy sort of abstract work without it like actually looking like something. You don't always need it to be something that's like that you remember. Well, let me backtrack on remember. Something that you see in the world. Emotion plays a big part in art because of just, it's your feeling, and even in representative work. So abstract just kind of pulls some of that out and really gets a little bit more in the core of like where you're feeling.
Yeah, I think a lot of that has to go with like how you process information, right? We want to say we're processing art visually, when, like you said, it may be more like kinesthetically or, on the emotional side, and going like, how does this piece make you feel, rather than, what do you see or what are you looking at? So And I think that's prevalent in the art world and how people do interpret, forms of art, especially like you said, abstract and the different ones that aren't actually something physical that you see in the world. It's just kind of shapes or colors or stripes or whatever the, painting is. But I know you're into all different types of things. And so how did you come up with the idea for this business? Like, how did you create this? You're like, hey, look, I love art. I love creating art. I love looking at art. I love sharing art. How did you get to where you're like, hey, I'm going to make a business out of this and go from there?
Yeah, well, yeah, so the concept of struggling and starving artists comes to mind. And my folks saying, well, look, you really can't get a job as an artist. It's just not going to work for you. You're going to starve. And I mean, truth be told, there were definitely occasions of starving. And I wanted to get out of that as quickly as possible. And so when I was doing tours, we could actually charge for it. We could actually
Jeremy,
say,
hang
like,
on. You cut out there for a second. I want to make sure our audience get it. So you said when you were doing tours.
When I was working in downtown for this for the arts organization, one thing that was crucial for the organization is they needed to make money, because they were like, yeah, we can get grants, but like we need to have some sort of foundation.
Sure.
And one thing that we had was people. We had thousands and thousands of people, and so anyways, what we could do to like generate some revenue were tours. We can take people to galleries and like expose them to art in an intimate way. And so that actually gave me two things. One, the ability to make some money. And the other was I could interview artists and gallerists and say, like, how are you making it? How are you eating? Because I want to know how you're eating.
Right.
So I can take that concept and I can plug it back into my own experience. And so, as I connected with more artists, I saw this like thread of what does a really good artist, one that's eating, what is he doing? What are the behaviors that he's doing? And what are the ones that the starving artist is doing? And so the more I did these interviews while exposing people to that, I was really on the same field as they were, in like the listening of what the experience was. I mean, the art was there, but again, it's like it's only like this. It's like a preface for everything else that's around it. And so, from where somebody lived to do that piece, to someone's interpretation and how they did it. And so all of these things actually make the piece rather than it just being this piece of work.
Sure.
And so it was really good to see how all of that really worked.
Jeremy, I want to touch on something that you said right when you started with that about, artists starving and your parents saying to you, hey, you might need to find another field. You don't want to starve. So you were talking about, basically when you were born, you were experiencing art. So what does your parents do for work? Are they not in the art field? Because I was assuming when you made that comment in the beginning that they were in the art world, but now it sounds like they may not be in the art world.
Right. Yeah. So my dad, he was an illustrator, and he he ended up working for like Hughes Helicopters, kind of a government business where he was actually doing illustrations for their new fleet of helicopters. And then it got more corporate, And so it just like stopped. I have a cousin who was a storyboard artist for major films. I mean, he's done stuff for James Cameron and Disney and all kinds of folks. And you know, the stigma that I got was being taken advantage of. And so, and I've, you know, there's other artists or writers who've produced for like film and television. And so, you know, as an artist, when I was like doing animation, I didn't want to go down that route of being taken advantage of as an artist. Like, cause I'm creative, and I loved, God, I would love to just live in the world of creativity like my entire life. The problem is it's not sustainable if you don't know the inner workings of like how art, what's the value of it? What's the value of my art? And what's the value of my creativity? Sure. And so that my family, I don't think that they quite figure that out in a way that allowed them to be happy and profitable and sustainable. And that's what I took a lot of extra time to figure out for myself, which, you know, there was definitely that point of like this struggle. And now, you know, because I've been really in it for a while, you know, doing having my own commercial design business, and then a tourism business, and now like a tech venture, you know, really seeing what is the value of creativity.
So how would you explain that, the value of creativity? Like, so is it basically just your worth as an artist and what you can bring to an organization or to the world as an artist? Like, how would you define that, Jeremy?
Yeah, it's what someone's willing to pay for it.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Supply and demand.
I get it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really what it comes down to. Because from, you know, animation to fine art to,
Sure.
you know, a flyer to a logo, they all have their own level of value. And so you, as an artist, you need to know what that is to them. You need to be able to look on the other side, not as a creative person, but like, what does this mean when my artwork is used in your business?
Got it.
Who's looking at this? And to what determination is this piece going to make or break your business?
So then it makes me think, so for us lay people that aren't in the art world, you know, when you see these paintings on the wall that are thousands of dollars, right, you know, where does the values get set? Is it set by the artist? Is it set by the gallery? Like, where
right,
do these prices come from? Because some of them seem, you know, exorbitant. It's like, who picked this, and how
Sure.
is it worth this much?
Right. So on like on an emerging level artist, so it's a little more practical. On an established artist, I think your boy left.
Yeah.
So for the emerging artists, you're looking at it almost like market rate. So let's say, you know, I'm a business. I'm an artist. You know, artists technically are businesses. You know, if you're freelance, like you're really a business. So yeah. I actually really hate the term freelance artist. I think that's a tarnished way to describe someone who is a creative in the industry. Freelance, okay. Bullshit. So, anyways, for an emerging artist, you know, you're looking at like hours. You know, let's say I pay myself $20 an hour to make a piece of artwork. Okay, and I have my cost of materials. So let's say it takes 100 hours to do this painting at $20 an hour. right? So you take $20 an hour, you multiply it by 100.
Sure. 2,000.
And you get $2,000. Now you also have to add the cost of materials.
Sure.
So my paints cost me $50. My canvas cost me 100. I also framed it. Framing it can be very expensive,
Sure.
because people really like frames. And so let's say it's an extra $500. So that piece literally is just now worth, say, about $3,000.
Okay.
That's kind of the more practical way for an emerging artist to like set prices for a piece of work. Now, if you're established, it's about relationships. So whose artwork, no, I'm sorry, not whose artwork. My work is on whose walls. If my artwork is sitting on Michael Jackson's wall in his estate, damn sure that piece is gonna be worth some money. Because people pay for relationships.
Sure.
Your value is whether you like it or not, your value is based on how other people perceive you. And so your best bet is in doing just that, in building relationships, with people who have influence, that can then vouch for your value, and that's just, I think really that's every industry, I mean, it's not as systematized, say, like you're working a corporate job, and you have
Sure.
to value your work, people value you, but it kind of goes along the same lines. Now, there's totally a market in the art world that is behind closed doors, and much of these high exorbitant prices are through very wealthy people who can say that this is the price. Why? Because they're wealthy.
Sure.
I find that very, very fascinating. So a artist basically should be doing is talking with people that have a lot of influence and pushing their art to them, because of that very fact, their art could rise in price just because of their influence and finding the right person to buy their art. I never thought about that before. That kind of blew my mind to think about it like that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, you've got, and that's sort of this thread that you now actually see in social media. Artists, they're actually kind of going through the galleries, or galleries play like a different kind of role in their like way of valuing art. And so artists may take that route, and other artists may not. They'll just be like, you know what, I'm just going to sell all my stuff online. And, some actually do quite well, because now you've got a larger pool of people who will, quote unquote, vouch for you. And so, you got 100,000 followers and you sell art, you can kind of price it a little bit more just because of that.
There's so many facets, right?
You got 10,000 followers as an influencer, somebody's going to pay you to do an ad.
Sure. Yeah, there's so many different facets to art, and I'm sure that this is very interesting to our audience for the people that aren't in that world and don't know the little ins and outs. Something I'm curious about. I know you say you're doing some leadership training. What have you learned along the way of building your business and being the owner of your own company and going through this process? Because I know you have employees. I know you work with different teams. What are some of the biggest things that you've learned in that process of creating your own business and going into that leadership role and really running this? Like, what are your biggest things you've learned along the way?
Yeah, I've learned with team building, you are setting the example all day, every day, as the leader.
Sure.
All day, and that is stuff that people see and they don't see. And so, when you're off, that gives them a little extra bandwidth to be off as well. You're a day late. Hey, well, you know what? He was a day late. Like, I'll be a day late. And so I see, I see it like, if I'm not on my game, then, it will easily trickle down to, to employees. So like having some structure in the beginning of my day so that I can give and be my absolute best and clearest and sharpest will give my team the ability to show up at their best selves as well, because that's what they joined for. Like, they joined, I mean, the idea is great. The leader, in some ways, is even better. I mean, like, I would rather be led by somebody I absolutely admire than an idea. Sure. Because I think I can get more out of that. I love ideas, but it's just like, who am I being surrounded by? At the end of the day, like, how is this also affecting my own personal, growth, whether or not they see it or not. So, yeah.
That's a huge factor. Just modeling the way for your employees and the people that are around you, because, like you said, you have to show up every day, because and I think you and I have talked about this before, Jeremy, but it's the idea that a lack of integrity is contagious. So if you aren't being in full integrity at all times, then the people around you are like, oh, well, then I can show up 5 minutes late. Then I don't need to meet that deadline. And then it trickles down into other areas of your life as well, not just in your business, personal life, relationships. So that integrity is huge, and noticing its effect on people around you is, I don't think it's something that people really think about.
Mm-hmm. Highly agreed. And I think that should be taught in like every grade level.
Right.
Is integrity. Because it is foundational. Your word is like sets existence and precedence. Everything that you say or don't say sets precedence for how other people relate to you. And, I mean, I definitely still need it. Like, it's not going to be something that you just learn and you're good. It's not like a bicycle, you learn one day and you kind of can, figure it out. It's constant. And
it's a choice you make every day, right?
Yeah. It's a choice.
Yeah, I like that.
Jeremy, I have a question for you. What advice would you give to a starving artist right now in this COVID, starting out, he, 22, 23, and he wants to make art his career. He doesn't want to do anything else. Art is the name of his game or her game. What advice could you give?
I think
Jeremy's like, where do I start?
Right. Get a manager. No, I think it's consistency. It's consistency that you're going to show up and you're going to be your best self. And you're going to constantly train yourself to continually be your best self. Like, and that is going to filter into your art. It's going to filter personally, it's going to filter professionally, and it's going to filter into your art. So you need to know and be committed to the long haul. This isn't going to be a short run, make money quick type deal. And really the world has also perceived it that way. So like,
right.
The great thing is it's possible, and it's possible to accelerate even faster considering where we're at now. With your dedication to your craft, and how you orient yourself is really, really important.
I think that message can transcend any business or career, right? Like that consistency. Like when you start a business, You know, like I give Paul props for being super consistent in his business. He's always putting out videos and putting out content. I'm like, Paul, I need to get on your level, man, you know, because you are super consistent with what you're doing. So I think that message really transcends, you know, any type of business. But I really like that, Jeremy. So how can our audience, you know, like look you up? Website, you know, what other projects are you working on, man? Like, what's the best way for them to find you and dotred and everything else you got going on?
Yes. So you can see the website. So it's dotred.co. We have one show on there, which was our pilot for the platform. You know, we've been in development. Anyways, you can go there. You can see the show. And you can also go on our Instagram, .redco. Everything is .redco to connect with us. If you want to see some of my personal work, you can go to jqartbusiness.com, and that will give you a little clue as to like what my commercial design work looks like. And then yeah, I mean, if you want to follow me and stalk me personally, that's cool too. And that is, I am Jeremy Quant. Just spell like it is. And yeah.
Well, Jeremy, we're going to put down all the contact information for you down in the show notes so everybody can get a hold of you and look up your content, check you out on Instagram and all those other platforms. We like to wrap up the show and ask our guests these questions with the idea of our title in mind, the Actions and Limits podcast. What would you say is one action that people can take, whether it's building a business or just in their life, like one action that people can take that can really make a difference right now?
I think one action that somebody can take is give themselves actually, I don't know how long it'll take, but what is your mission? Like to answer a question, what is your mission in life? What is it?
So that's the action to answer that?
Yeah, to answer the question is what is your mission and why? What and why to your mission in life? Like, why are you here? Why should I even care about you? Why should people care? And I think the more clear you are about that, really, the better you will have things that filter into your life that support your mission.
So it's along the lines of finding what you're passionate about, and I was almost hearing it in there, like, what's your message along with your passion?
Right.
So I like that. I think that's good. That's something we've heard a lot is like find your passion, but definitely I like that, answering that question. Why are you here?
Yeah. I mean, it cuts out a lot of crap. And in this world of a lot of shit, you really need to trim down.
Sure.
Last bit, I've been reading this book. I've been telling it to everybody, including Justin. It's called Essentialism. And it is literally the life of like the minimalist. You know, like what serves your highest purpose, and doing that.
Yeah.
And cut out everything else.
We had a guest on recently that talked about that being the minimalist and just getting rid of anything that doesn't matter in your life. And sometimes it's people, sometimes it's things, it's cutting out all the fat, trimming the fat. I like that, Jeremy. So the opposite side of that, the actions and limits, these limits that we impose on ourselves, these self-imposed limits, what have you seen that is a limit that is prevalent in the people that you deal with, or even in yourself, that we need to get rid of right away to make a real big difference in our lives?
What do we need to get rid of?
Just these limits that we
Yeah,
impose.
yeah.
Like what do you see?
You know, I think when you can get clear on what the purpose is, the things that are not important, you'll begin to realize. I would focus more on what it is, what your true kind of purpose is, and then see what limits and actions are then around it, because there may be some limits that actually support that. And I think there's like this gut feeling where something is like off, right? It's like this really does not. I can tell this shit ain't vibing with me, and like that's knowing intuitively, like, yeah, this is not going to work. This is not like to your highest purpose. And the more that you know what that purpose is, the odder your feelings are going to get about things that aren't in alignment with that.
Sure. Yeah. I like that. It's when you find what your focus is, the rest of the stuff starts to fall away, right? And it's like, well, heck, that doesn't matter anymore, or I'm not going to do that anymore because it doesn't serve my purpose. So, no, I like that, Jeremy. So, man, thanks for coming on our show. Thanks for sharing the world of art with us, because we're not there. We're not on that level, Jeremy. So we're novices, right? So I hope that our audience picked up on something, and that everyone out there will check out your content. And yeah, man, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, no, thank you both for offering a place for people to be authentic with themselves, and really look at the actions and limits of their own lives and see what is really truly valuable, and bringing that to the forefront. So thank you both for just being available together as one unit to offer that, because that is really crucial. I know it's not easy.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate that, Jeremy. Thanks again, man.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, guys.
Well, Jeremy was such a good guest. He's a good friend of mine. I'm glad we could get him on the show. I think we learned a lot about art, man, and all his ideas within business. A lot of it was a lot of the same things we talk about, or we've heard other guests talk about, being that consistency, being in integrity, being that leader that models the way for other people. I really liked, everything he talked about, man. I think we learned a lot.
Absolutely. And I learned a lot about art because of him, especially the abstract stuff, and how the interpretation and the influence, a lot of great stuff. Love that you had him on the show. Great guest.
Yeah. Let's wrap up the show with another segment of Ask Paul Anything. Everyone out there, make sure to continue to send in your questions to actionsandlimits@gmail.com, and you can have your questions featured on the show. Paul, you said you found a good one in the email today.
Yeah, I did. This is from Amy from Wisconsin, and she writes, Paul, at your funeral, what song do you want played?
Okay. I'm bracing myself for this one.
Well, I think for me, I think it's quite obvious. And I'm sure it's quite obvious to you, Justin, on the song that I want played at my funeral.
What's the song?
So it's by the artist of Tina Turner. You're simply the best, better than all the rest.
And that was supposed to be obvious. Oh, geez. When you said Tina Turner,
I had a little fun with it. It wasn't obvious. I was a little chokey pokey.
Better than the rest. Yeah. I thought you were going to say Proud Mary or something. I was like, what is Paul about to break
Yeah,
out?
yeah. I mean, as you all know, I'm just joking about was Simply the Best. But I like that song, and if somebody asked me that question, that was the first song that popped in my head, so I thought I'd ask that question.
I've heard of people like having it requested that they play some crazy songs at funerals. So if that ends up being the case, I can only imagine, what will be played, Paul. It probably won't be that song, but
yeah,
sure
probably will not. Yeah, I probably can guarantee that's probably not the song that we'll be playing, but that's okay.
Well, great show, Paul. I think we learned a lot from Jeremy. I was really glad to have him on the show. So, man, we're kicking off, season 2 of Actions and Limits podcast, man. We, with a bang. We've got a lot of good guests, and man, looking forward to keeping it going, man.
Absolutely. For Justin Atherton, this is Paul Fortune. We'll see you next week.
Right. See you next Monday. Thank you for listening to the show. Don't miss an episode. Click and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on your favorite podcast platform, and find us on Instagram and Facebook under Actions and Limits to stay updated on all our upcoming content. Continue to email the show at actionsandlimits@gmail.com for our segment Ask Paul Anything. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.